Hey guys, and welcome back. So we're going to get into the big bad scary world of unwrapping and what that means and what that does for us and how that helps us and makes problems for us and all the stuff that it involves. Don't worry, it's not that big and bad and scary. Just like everything else, once you kind of know how to handle it, it becomes pretty easy. Okay, so don't be intimidated and don't worry. It's going to be fine. It's super simple. So what the idea is that when you apply a texture map to something, right, you need to have basically a place to put the textures where they'll relate to a 3D structure, right? So this is all 3D, right? So how do you exactly tell a flat drawing how to look at this 3D object, right? It's like I don't know what to do with it. So so the way that it was solved in this 3D world, right, is that they basically can create a camera that will like snap a photo of the area that you tell it, right? So if I'm saying like I want to shoot all of these guys, right, which are all sort of flat, right? They're all sort of facing the camera right now. And imagine if we were to take a photo of this, right? What would that look like, right? And then it puts that outline onto a sheet, right? And that's going to be our UV sheet, right? And that's what we're going to use to, so UV is just a fancy way of saying X and Y, except it's not X and Y because it's U and V, right? Because X and Y is used here. They don't want to confuse you. So, so let's get that open. So in your polygons editor, you can open up this little texture sheet, right? And here is your layouts of what you've got going on, right? And yours is probably going to be a jumbled mess, right? So you want to make it not look like a jumbled mess. You want to have something more like this little object on the side, which kind of represents what I'm holding here, which actually does represent what I'm holding here, right? So I'm just going to continue to grab my selection and get all the pieces that I'd like to have facing my camera right now, right? So we're not really going to use the viewport as the camera, though you can. It actually is an option, and you can do it that way, but it's not really generally the way to do it. So we're just going to do it a little more of a traditional way. And I want to create a way that I can draw on my texture sheet that will be relative to my mind and the way that I want to look at the images on a flat object, right? So we could theoretically just take each one of these pieces and plaster them out, and it would be perfect and there would be no problem at all, but it would be very hard to draw because you'd have all these little boxes all over the place that were flattened and put onto this sheet, right? But we don't, our minds can't work that way. We're not computers, you know what I mean? We're not gonna think in that format, right? We need to be able to see something that we can draw into, right? So it's just as important for us to be able to interrelate with this thing in front of us here as it is for the computer to interrelate with it. So that's why it's a little tough, and that's why it's a little challenging, and that's why it takes a little thinking to get it right. But basically, this is how you're going to do it, right? So I've selected all these things, okay? And now what I want to do is I'm just going to go create UVs, and I'm going to go into planar mapping, okay? And in here you have a bunch of options. And the most important thing you're going to be able to do is make sure you keep this keep image width height ratio on, okay? So now the other thing we want to do is make sure that the axis is set to the correct axis. If you look here, you can actually see like this is Y, this is X, that's Z. So that's the direction that the camera is going to be facing when it takes this picture. So we want it to face on the Z-axis, and we want it to make sure that it keeps everything in proportion. And yeah, so we're just going to hit apply. And as you can see, it puts this thing here, right? And now you have a nice, easy way to draw on it, okay? So when we export this, right, or take a photo of this and send it to Photoshop, right, we can draw in this area nice and easily, and it won't be a problem for us, okay? So that's the idea. So let's just do that, and let's move him off the side, okay? And close this for now. And we're just going to do the same thing on the other side now. Okay, so we're just going to select all these faces. Actually, I'm just going to do it a little easier. I should have done it this way the first time. And I'm just going to select out the remainder of my faces. And I'm going to do the exact same thing again. Okay, so I've got all my faces selected. I'm just going to go create planar mapping, set it to the z-axis, hit apply, and move this one out of the way. Now, let's just close this window for a moment, and let's just take a look. And let's go right-click, Object, and right-click, Face. So now what we want to do is we want to start getting these faces selected, okay? So let's just get them. And we can probably even do these top two. Did I get them? Yeah, I got them. Good. Okay, so those are grabbed. So now we're just going to go the same thing, create planar mapping. And this time we're going to do it from the y-axis, right? Because this is the y. So we're going to hit apply. And we're just going to move this whole bundle out of the way. So I guess you can kind of see where this is going now, right? So now we've got these little individual islands that all represent the location on our model. And I'm just going to close that. And now, okay, so the same way that you can right-click in here, right? You can also right-click over here. And actually, you can do it here too. You can just go UV from here, or you can go right-click UV from here, right? And that will give you a different way of selection. Okay, so now you can grab the points of these guys and move them around. Just note that you still use your same move tool, scale tool, and rotate tool to operate in here as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. So one thing that I find incredibly useful, like if you want to grab all of these pieces and you want to move them and control them, right? So you can select those two and then right click and then go select and then say select shell. Right, and then you'll have the whole shell. Now you can move that whole shell around and you don't have to worry about it. So it makes it a little easier. Trying to select them individually can be a nightmare sometimes. But like this guy, we just want to encompass and move. And the idea now is to kind of get us both a very, like we don't want to waste space. We want everything nice and tight, okay? But at the same time, we want to keep it in a way that's organized for our brain. So when we bring this over to Photoshop, it's not like, oh my God, what am I looking at, right? So yeah, just get this all nicely, and you can use this trick again. So select shell, and you know, this is where it comes in handy, and yeah. So now what we want to do is we want to start getting the side pieces here. So let's go right click face, and we're just gonna select out those guys right there, and probably these guys too, because you see what I'm saying, like if you were to look from the side, like those are going to be kind of flat, right? So those are the ones we're grabbing now, and we're going to go same thing, create UVs, planar mapping, and this time we're going to do it from the x-axis, right? Because that's the axis that would be looking down that path, and we're just going to hit apply. And we're just going to move. Now, do you see how it's not exactly always right? So what you can even do is you can actually just do bounding box, and that should just create it square, square. There's advantages to using it as the best plane, but sometimes you want to use it as bounding box. So just, you know, try to figure it out. It's not too tough. You'll understand. I don't even know where I'm putting these things yet, so it doesn't matter. So right now what we're doing is we're just trying to get all the islands. That's what we call this in this. These are islands, right? Each one of these little things right here is an island. So so we're creating islands so that our mind can kind of wrap around how to draw on the surfaces. So eventually we'll organize them all and put them into this box over here, but right now we're just trying to get them separated so that we have everything that we want. So now I'm going to do these bottom ones. So I'm going to do this on the y-axis and hit apply and move it out of the way. And now if you have shading turned on, which I think you I had a little note, and I think you should, but if you don't at this point, you should, because as you can see, these guys are upside down and shaded differently. So because they're shaded differently, that means that they're upside down. And we're going to want to fix that in a minute, but that's just something to note. So basically the camera only looks in one direction, so it's shooting these from the back side of the object, and therefore we have to flip them so that they fit right. We'll get into that in a moment, but I just wanted you to see that. So yeah, and if you don't know how to turn on that, it's just go into Image, and Image, and Shade UVs, and then you'll be able to see that they're shaded like that. So okay, I'm going to keep going. And where are we? What don't we have yet? I think we have the whole thing now. We got these. Yep, we got those. We got these. Oh, when you select, you can actually see, because it puts a little highlight around it. So you can actually use that to figure out which island you're looking at. It makes it a little easy. So whatever you click on gets an island. All right, great. So it looks like we actually have all these pieces done, and that's going to be what we needed. All right, so close this for now, and let's close this for now. And right-click, Object Mode, and let's move on to our next object. Now, I can see before I even get started that there's a little problem here, so I'm just going to fix that by pulling it up into the body. Right-click, Object Mode, and now this is going to be a little more. Yeah, you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it. We can handle it. So this is going to introduce a new type of mapping. This is going to be a cylindrical map. As you can see, planar maps we can do it with planar maps for sure. It just would be easier to do with another map, right? So there's one other type of projection that is available in 3D, and it basically, the same way that we used like the front shot before, you can also do a big cylinder, okay? So that's what we're going to do, and let's go ahead and do it. So in this time, let's open up our texture map again, and let's move it out of the way. And now you should have a big jumbled mess again of, big, like, what is that thing, right? Like, that doesn't help us at all. So I'm just going to get it out of the way, and just, there we go. And zoom in. I like to keep the window open while I work, so. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go create UVs, and you see here we now have cylindrical mapping. Okay, there's also one for spherical and automatic and blah blah blah. The only two that I ever use are these two, really. I mean, every once in a while I'll do this, and every once in a while I'll do automatic, but for the most part I don't. I do it these two, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go cylindrical mapping, and we're just going to hit apply. And we'll get this funky looking thing, and we can see that, well, parts of it are good, but parts of it aren't, right? So that's okay. So we're just going to move this out of the way, and we're going to hit this closed. Okay, this bottom part is the thing that's giving us an issue because it doesn't really relate well to a cylinder, right? So all we're going to do is go right-click, Object Mode, and go face, right? And we're just going to select these bottom faces, all of them. Make sure they're all selected. And this time we're just going to go create UVs, planar mapping, and we're going to go from the y-axis and hit apply. And that gets rid of that bottom edge that was a problem, okay? And we're just going to move this out of the way. And now we've got this whole handle finished as far as the UVs go. And I'm just going to hit close on this, and I'm just going to go right-click, Object Mode, and select. So now we've got our island set up for this. So let's get this guy out of the way. And let's move on to the sword blade. And this one's going to be two planar maps, very easy, right? So we're just going to go right-click, face, and we're just going to start selecting out the faces. You know what? Before we do this, I see that we can actually optimize this model a little more. So I'm just going to go Edge, and I'm just going to get rid of this whole center line because we don't need it anymore, and it's not going to help us. So let's just get rid of that guy. We could probably get rid of this one, but we're so far below our requirements right now that we don't really need to. It's fine the way it is. So just leave it there. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go right-click, face, Let's select out all these faces. Make sure you get that one in here that's not visible. If you need to get to see it, how can you do that easy? But yeah, you shouldn't. Just make sure it gets selected. You'll see. Because we're going to merge all this stuff in a moment anyway. It's just that one thing. Just select it. You'll figure it out. Alright, so that's good. Oh, make sure you don't have anything on the back selected. And we should be A-OK. Alright, so same routine. Open up the window. Create UVs, planar mapping. And we're going to be back on the Z-axis. And hit apply. And let's zoom in, make sure we got everything. Yep, we did. Beautiful. Let's move that out of the way. Let's move around the back side. And select all of our faces. Including that one in the middle that's not visible. Apply. Move it out of the way. Let's just do it this way. Select them all. And now we're just going to go create UVs, planar mapping. This time it's going to be from the x-axis. Apply. Move him out of the way. Do the other side. See, and this is where having a really low poly count object actually helps, because can you imagine if this was hundreds and hundreds and really large of an object, right? So it actually behooves you to spend your time optimizing your model, because it means you have to do less UV mapping, which nobody really enjoys. So you know, it always makes sense to do it right. And the y-axis. I mean, sometimes you have to add detail, and you have to do it, and there's nothing you can do about it. But, you know, for now, that's all we're going to worry about. So, that should be good. Okay, so, we've done it. We've gotten surfaces laid out for everything that we needed, and now what we need to do is just make sure that they're all in the right scale. But before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to actually merge all these pieces together. So what I want to do now is I want to go right-click right-click UV, and I'm just going to select all my UV edges here, and I'm going to move them into this lower left quadrant, okay, right over here. For just the sword blade, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right-click Object Mode, and I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to go back into my texture window and just make sure that this one is all located in the upper left quadrant, okay? And now we're going to grab the handle, and we're going to go into our texture thing, and we're going to make this guy, make sure that this guy is in the lower right quadrant, okay? So now we've got, if we look at them sequentially, we'll have lower left, top left, bottom right, okay? Now, why did we do that? So what we're going to do is we're going to merge all these pieces together. So we don't want all this stuff that we just spent all this time organizing to be all laid on top of each other now, right? We did this because it's easier to work in smaller things. You know, when you have a million pieces to worry about, it's a lot harder, and it's a lot harder to grab stuff, etc., etc. So we made it easy on ourselves by making it just a simple cylinder extrude, a simple this thing, and and we're done, right? We're good. So now it's all sitting over here, and when we merge them, we'll know that this is not going to end up dumped on top of our sword blade, which is dumped on top of our, hilt, right? So that would be a big mess to have to clean up again. We don't want to have to clean it up again. So just organize it out, make sure that they're not sitting on top of each other like we have, and let's go ahead and start merging these pieces together. So now we're going to grab them all, and if we look at the sheet, we'll actually see none of them are overlapping now. So you can actually do that. I don't know, I didn't mention that, but you can actually grab multiple items to see where they land on the sheet, and it's one of the nicest things about my LT, I think. I love that fact. I don't know, it's just something I really like. Other programs I've used don't do that, and it's just so useful to be able to have this all laid out, and you can just see all your texture sheets in one sheet and know if they're overlapping and such. So you can see how to combine stuff. It's great. It's awesome. Anyway, I digress. So let me close this, and let's go edit mesh. Mesh, combine. Right? And now it's all put together. And now, one piece is all of them. right? Now we can go ahead and start organizing these things out. And yeah, we're on our way. So next we're just going to organize this stuff, put it into that box, and then we are pretty much ready for baking. All right, so, and we'll do our first test bake and see how it goes. Cool. All right, so what we need to do now is we need to start applying materials. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up this little window right here, and we're going to click it open. And I'm sorry, that's under the Materials tab, okay? So go to the Materials tab and pop that little guy. And what we're going to do is we're just going to click this checker thing here, and it's going to pop it open in this window. And just zoom out a little bit by scrolling your mouse wheel back. And now what we're going to do is we're going to right-click on the checker pattern and say Assign Texture Materials to Selection, okay? And that's going to pop it here, okay? So now what we can do is we can select our sword and right-click and say Assign Material to Selection, okay? So now we've got it assigned. Now, before we leave here, we just want to kind of adjust a few properties. So select this Place 2D Texture thing and go to the attribute editor. So now in here we can adjust some things, and most importantly is this repeat UV. So as you can see, I'm sorry, I have a lot of stuff open here. Let me just shut some stuff and kind of make this a little smaller so you can see what we're talking about. And I'll just move that like that. So so with this selected, we now have the ability, like whatever you select here will show its properties here. Okay, so just keep that. You got to know that, like that's kind of important. And we're going to select this first one, and we're now going to see the properties that are dependent on it. So we're going to go to the 4, and we're going to make that an 8. And the second one we're going to make an 8 also. And as you can see, we've made the pattern a little more dense. If we wanted to go even higher, we could. In fact, we might. So let's go 10 and 10. I like a tighter pattern. I feel like I do a better job. So yeah, so there we are, and we can see that there's not a lot of regularity going on here. We need to make sure that that stuff is all perfect squares, or as close to perfect as we can. The hilt is pretty good. In fact, we're going to match to the hilt because these all look like nice, perfect little pretty squares, and these are all good. So we're looking good. This part's a little squished. This part is just a little too big, actually too small. So let's get to it, and that's all we need in here for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our UV maps, and by going into polygons and opening up our texture window, this one white little guy with a T, and we're just going to select our object. Okay, so let's take a look at the handle first, which is this squarish looking one. So I'm going to go I'm going to go UV, and I'm just going to select all these UVs, and I'm just going to scale it down. Because as you scale something down, it makes the squares bigger. But as you can see, we're not really just dealing with them being square, they're also squished. Okay, so we have to just narrow this down. And you just want to kind of get it to where it looks like a square. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, it feels square. But the whole thing is too small, like it's too big, so we have to actually increase its size. So let's just increase it up until it matches those squares up on top. Now these bottom ones are going to be a little more tricky, and we could fix it, but I think it's going to be kind of okay. Not sure if I want to fix that or not. We could fix it like the way we did this thing. Yeah, I guess we should. So let's do that. So I'm just going to right click and go face and select these faces around here. Oops, don't want to move it. And I'm just going to go create UVs, planar mapping, and I want the y-axis. Apply. Close. And I'm just going to move that into position. And now what I want to do is I just want to make sure this guy is approximately the same size as everything else. So UVs, select the UVs I want to grab, and I'm just going to scale it. Oops. Right click, select shell. And I'm just going to move it until those squares feel like they're about the same size. That's good. Yep, right about like that. And I'm just going to move him out of position. Okay, so now I'm going to go UVs, select these, right click, select shell, scale, and oops. That's probably about good. In all honesty, no one's ever going to see down there anyway, but I like to do a close to perfect job any which way I cut it, so that's pretty good. Move him up, and move to the now last piece, which we're going to do another cylinder map for. So actually we don't even need to, we can just do it by eye. That's looking great. Okay, so on to the next task. Yeah, that looks really good. Everything's looking really good so far. Let's go right click, and we're going to go, actually I'm not, I'm going to go to the sword blades. So yeah, right click, UVs, and we're just going to zoom in here and grab our sword blade. And we're just going to scale that way up. Oops. Make sure you get it so that I keep grabbing that little line. As you can see, it just pulls it in one direction. So I'm just going to scale him up till those squares are about right and move him over. So now we're dealing with a little collision stuff, but that's okay. And we're going to right click and we're going to go UV and we're going to grab this stuff. And since I know this stuff is all pretty much the same, I should have done it for all of them actually. In fact, yeah, no, I'm just going to stick with it for now. It's fine. And I'm just going to scale. Oops. Oh, you really got to grab that square. It's a little challenging to click on sometimes. I just want to check the back side. Wow, got that pretty close right on the first shot. I'll take it. I don't want to get this confused. I'll put this down here. And I'll put this down here. Okay, so that's actually probably about good. That little thing nobody cares about, but it's way too big. It would take up way too much map space, so let's get him fixed. And scale it down. And move you out of the way. Just going to put it up here someplace. And take all these and just kind of nudge them into spot. And alright, so we are really almost done here. And I'm just going to zoom out, grab these guys. And now I'm just kind of arranging the way that I think my mind will see it best. So I think what I want to do actually is I'm going to go right click, select shell, rotate, and I'm just going to rotate this guy 90 degrees, and I want to put on discrete rotate. So I haven't shown you guys that yet, have I? So under here, if you double click, right, this is the rotate tool. So if you go into this, you can actually say discrete rotate and put it on 15 degrees. So then it'll snap. So that just makes life easy. I don't know if I showed that to you guys yet or not, but if I didn't, I did again. So there you go. Select one of these guys, right click, select shell, rotate, and get him like that. Good. Move and drop him into position. Alright, so now we're just going to grab these ones and move. And these ones. Move. And these ones, right click, select, shell, and move. And select and move. All right, so now we got them all pretty much like this. What we're going to do now is we're going to try to squeeze all these. Actually, no, we're not going to do that yet. Let's get these things corrected. So I was saying earlier that I'm just going to maximize this for a moment so I can see it nice and big. Okay, so these are upside down, these ones that are pink. So we want to put them right side up. And how we're going to do that is easy. You're just going to select, right click, select, shell, right? And right click, polygons, flip. And we're going to do the same here. So I'm just going to go right click, UV, select all my faces here, or all my pieces, right click, select, shell, and we're just going to go right click, polygons, flip. Okay, and we're going to do that for these ones too. Just select them all. And I'm just going to shift select that point, right click, polygons, flip. Select these down here. Oop. Just make sure I'm in UV mode. Select them, right click, select shell, right click, polygons, and flip. And lastly, the one on top here, UV, select, oops, right click, polygons, and flip. All right. And the last stage is just to squeeze them into that box up on top. So you can see that this is the positive view. I think this is positive, right? Or is it negative? I think it's negative on one. No, it's positive, positive. Yep. So positive U, positive V, and that's where we need our textures to fall, right in here. Okay. So we're going to do that, and oops, right click. You can actually do it with as many things selected as you want, and you can just go shell, and it'll just grab everything then. So long as you have at least 1 point selected for each of your shells, and I'm just going to scale it down. Oops, I can't do that right now. I'm just going to do this so I can see, and zoom in, and take my scale tool, and squeeze it on down. Move it into the corner. See how it fits. Get a little closer. That is really driving me crazy with that texture on the background, and I think I can actually turn that off. Right? No, I guess not. Display image. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just going to scale it down a little more. Oops. It's really hard to get these to scale well. I know it's a pain in the butt. And basically what I want to do is scale it down until the sword blades fit, because they're the biggest, tallest item, right? So that's the best we can do. So that's going to stay there. And right click, select, shell, and move this. Where can I move this to? A little tighter. I don't want that so tight to the edge. I could put it here, but that's just sinfully ugly. Let's put this guy, right click, select, shell. And yours doesn't have to look exactly like this, just as long as it looks something like this, you know what I mean? Like, just as long as it all fits on this square, it really doesn't matter. And as long as they're all pretty much in the same, like, once you do that checkerboard thing, it doesn't matter where you place them, just as long as it works, you know? So that's looking pretty good. And I'm trying to think, so we have like a lot of roaming texture sheet space, right? And I know that this area takes a lot of detail. So what I'm thinking about doing is just increasing the size of them disproportionately to everything else, just so that they hold a little better detail. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Right click, select shell. So basically anything that's going to have like a high impact area where you can have a lot of visibility, you can donate more. Like basically, how do I describe this? So the bigger this is, when you have let's say this was 100 pixels by 100 pixels, right? That means that right now we're taking up about, I don't know, 30 pixels wide or so, right? So if we were to make this bigger, we're actually taking up more pixels. So that means we're actually taking up more density, but it doesn't change the size of the object. It just changes how much pixels it takes to describe it, right? So we can actually increase these and give them more density. So that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm just kind of increasing them a bit until they fit kind of like that. Yeah, that's good enough. That's plenty good enough. Right click, select shell. I'm just going to move him out of the way for a moment. I'm going to take these guys, and I think I can right click, select shell. Maybe move him in here. Yeah, I can at least fit one of them. So right click, select shell. And put that guy in there. Put this guy over here. And put him down there. Now we're kind of looking good. These don't matter which way they face, they're just stripes, so we're just going to rotate. And right click, select shell, rotate him. And just move him into some place where he fits. So that looks good. This one's going to be a little bit more of a challenge, but I think we can make it work. Select shell. Now you don't want to have anything overlapping. That's really important. So don't have anything overlapping. And you want some breathing space between all your elements so that when you have to do MIP mapping later, which we're not even going to get into, but basically when you have to lower the resolution of your pieces, then it can leave like fuzzy edges and such and give you problems if you don't give yourself a little extra space. So select shell, and I'm just going to move you over there. And can I get some more space down on the bottom? No, we're good. That's good. That's good. So I'm just going to put this one over here. And I think we're golden. These pieces could probably take a little more prominence too. What are those? What are these? Just trying to figure out like what piece that relates to. So if you select it, it'll actually, you can focus on it and zoom. So I can see that it's these pieces, which don't need any more resolution. They're fine. That's fine. This is fine. Okay, so if you get it to this stage, you're great, okay? Anywhere close to this, just as long as you don't have any overlaps, and so long as you have all your, a good little bit of space around everything, but not too much, and just as long as it fits within this box, okay? You should be set to go. So that's where I'm going to stop for now, and I'm going to go ahead and come back in a moment, and I will show you the rest of the we're gonna do a test bake. All right, so let's rock.